What's going on, guys? Welcome back. My name is Brandon, and as the thumbnail suggests, we have a fun Flux Core Welding project today. Stick around. And here it is. This is what we're starting out with, guys. It's a little rough, and let me walk you through it and tell you what it is. I went to my local junkyard or my local scrap yard that takes scrap metal, and this is a wheel off a truck. What I don't know, they sold the wheel. They sold this piece of black iron pipe, which measures out to be 3/4, and they sold this piece here to me, which measures 1.25 inches. They sold this to me for 10 bucks. 10 bucks for everything. And it's not perfect, obviously. It's got a little bit of rust. It's got some areas that we're going to try to fix up a little bit, but again, it's a fire pit. And when we're done, it's going to look really good. And as you saw in the thumbnail, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, we're also going to put a swing out cooktop that just uses standard over-the-counter grates for any gas grills. So if they get worn out or damaged, you can just replace them, buy them online, piece of cake. You don't have to refab anything. And the reason I say that this is going to be like a beginner welding project is simply because there is very little risk and a lot of reward, because who doesn't like a fire pit? And another thing, guys, that makes this a great beginner welding project is because we're using equipment that a lot of you may use. This is a Harbor Freight Flux Core 125 welder. It's pretty bare bones. I think it's their bottom of the line welder. This welder was donated to the channel from a channel fan, and I am super grateful for it because we've run a bunch of wire through it. We did some experimenting with it, and we even figured out which wire runs the best in it, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. Not everybody has $3,000 to shell out for a top of the line welder, and it's not necessary to do something like this. So we'll talk about more like that as well. Why would I want to go spend, $3,000 when I can spend $140 for the same thing? Well, a lot of it has to do with features and warranty, but we'll talk more about that as we go. So let's get going. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to try to tune this up a little bit and straighten it out. That's better. Now, you guys don't have to get overly concerned with how this looks, and we'll explain why here in a minute. So now I got the rim fairly straightened out, and it's going to look pretty good. The bottom side is going to be probably sitting on the ground, so we don't have to worry too much about how that's going to look. And we're going to put some stone around it, so this will look pretty good when it's done. I think you're going to be quite impressed. But the one thing I'm concerned about right now, just because there is a little bit of rot around this wheel, is I don't want somebody to get cut on this edge right here. So I'm going to grind this up, and then we're going to put a lip on it. I'm just going to do that with some 3/8 solid stock that I had. We'll just bend it and tack it as we go. It's not going to be a big deal. So let's do that next. We'll clean this up, and then we'll get this edge tuned up. These are all things that you might have to do, but these are great little projects to do stuff like this because you can hone your skills. You're using different tools. You're using grinders, and you're doing a little bit of bending and a little bit of fabrication. So it's kind of good to hone your skills up. Normally I'd tell you that you'd want to get the metal right down to bright and shiny everywhere and take your time and do a really good job, especially with either solid wire or self-shielded wire. But a lot of this comes with knowing when you don't have to get it quite perfect. And again, this is just a fire pit ring, so there is a little traces here and there left behind, but I'm trying to balance out time versus burning up my consumables to get something to clean bare metal. And will it really overall matter in the scheme of this? Probably not overall. But yes, if you're doing it, a good general practice is to get it to bright and shiny. Whereas this is non-critical, it's non-structural, doesn't really matter. We're just going to stick a piece of metal to it. So let's get a rough estimate on that piece that I'm going to wrap around this, just so we have an idea of how long to cut it. And looks like if I made it about 21 inches would be good. I've put a mark on my piece right here. Now we're just going to cut it off at 21 inches long, and I'm using my portable bandsaw that I made. Super handy. This is a Milwaukee bandsaw, but I built this stand. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's the best design probably going right now on the internet. I'm really happy with it. I actually would not change a thing of how it was built. So if you want to see a link to that video, I'll put a link up above if you want to check it out. Now I'm going to get a little head start on bending that radius just by putting it in my vise and just pulling on it a little bit. That's it. Not trying to get it exact, just maybe make it a little bit easier when it comes time to go welding it up. Yeah, you can see that put a little bit of a curvature in it, and as we weld it, we can just fine tune that to get it to look really nice. That'll take care of any sharp edges that we come across. So let's get our welder set up, guys. With this welder, you can use the big spools or you can use the little spools, which is kind of nice. We've just got the little spools, and I'm using Lincoln Electric 30 thousandths wire, and this isn't paid sponsorship or anything like that. We did a bunch of testing on a bunch of different wires and determined that this was the best wire, at least for this machine anyways. I was actually quite surprised when I decided to do that shootout with all kinds of different wires, because the wire that I had normally been using was not this brand. And it was a brand actually from my welding supply store that was recommended. And I've since changed over to this brand just because I like it better. So you put the cap on, then the spring. I'll leave this open just so you can see what we're doing. Now the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to take off your nozzle. Get that out of there. Then take off your contact tip. Get that out of there as well. Now you won't have any obstructions. So what you want to do is take your lead or your whip, stretch it right out straight, then turn on your machine. And with this stretched right out, pull the trigger. There we go, right there. Turn it off. Then you can reassemble everything again. Snug down that a little bit. Put your nozzle on, and I'm not sure why they send it with a nozzle like this, because typically these metal type ones are for gas. When you have gas, it directs the shielding gas out. They actually have like a plastic one that goes on, so you don't have to worry about this making contact with your workpiece when you're using Flux Core. But that's how it came, and I've had no issues with it, so it is what it is. Then just trim it flush to your nozzle. And then you want to coat it with some nozzle gel to keep all the spatter from building up inside. That's really cheap. Again, I'll have links to everything that you see me using down in the description, just so you know. And then just dig out the extra. You don't need all that in there. That's not necessary. Typically this works better once it's hot, because then you can just dunk it in real quick into this jar, and then it just comes out and it doesn't pull out all this gel with it. It just leaves the inside coated lightly. But that'll keep the inside from getting all gummed up and spatter. Now before we set up our machine, I just want to take a quick minute to talk to you guys about safety and just like some basic stuff that you guys starting out should have. Because welding fumes are toxic, and the older I get, the more cognizant I become of wanting to stay healthy and not get sick or die due to all these fumes and poisoning. So you're going to want yourself a nice set of gloves. Just any old leather gloves, a respirator, which is great for welding and grinding. This style respirator fits underneath your hood, which is why I use that. That's 3M, and it uses the 2091 cartridges. This is a P100 respirator. Some people have said in the past, oh no, that's that's for sweeping dust or particles. It's not. Go to 3M website. It says 2091 is for welding and cutting operations. Those are adequate for what we're doing here. If we were doing it for our job, we would definitely probably want something a little better than that. But for heavy-duty weekend warriors, you and I, this is plenty, and it's way better than just breathing in fumes in your lungs. Set of hearing protection, which is good for grinding. Get yourself a nice set of safety glasses, again, grinding, chipping, and a welding helmet. And I have on just a cheap, inexpensive cotton Dickie shirt, long sleeves, so you're not getting burned. So those are pretty much the basics. Make sure you have steel toe boots. Don't wear sneakers because the spatter will drop down onto the toe box of your sneaker, burn through your sock, and burn your toe. Don't ask me how I know that. It's only happened a few hundred times. I'm a slow learner, but yeah, I don't wear sneakers in the shop anymore, or I try not to. Sandals are definitely out. No Crocs. So with the safety stuff out of the way, guys, let's set up our machine. So again, I'm using 30 thousandths wire. Most of these machines will tell you exactly how to set them up. Now this is an AC style machine. I think their next one up is DC, which probably would run a little bit smoother arc. This again is only a flux core machine. It has no provision to hook gas up to this. We're using 30 thousandths wire. And then you go down to the thickness settings here. We're going to call it, I guess, let's try 14 gauge because the edge of that wheel rim is kind of rotted. It's kind of punky. So I don't want to go burning it up. So we're going to focus all our heat onto the heavier piece and kind of like wash it onto the 14 gauge. So let's just say it's 14 gauge. It's saying, there's a little bit of a glare there. My lights are bright. So it's saying the recommended wire speed setting is 4 for 30 thousandths wire, and the switch needs to be minimum. So we're going to have to put the switch to minimum, set this wire feed to 4, and we'll just try it. If it doesn't work, we'll adjust it accordingly. We may have to go up a little bit, but for right now, that's going to work just fine. We'll put a little tack on it and see how it goes. Yeah, I think that was alright, guys. That didn't feel too bad. So now what I'm going to try to do is just kind of like manipulate this piece so that it makes a nice smooth arc along the edge of this wheel rim, just so I don't have to worry about somebody getting cut on it. That's all. That's all it's doing. I'll probably come along and tack it every 3 inches, and then we'll go back through and just put bigger tacks. We're not going to weld it all the way out. I'll tell you what, guys, I cannot get over how smooth this welder welds for the price of it. So what I'm doing, guys, is I'm focusing most of my heat with the MIG gun towards this heavy piece and just kind of like allowing it to wash down on to the thin rotted out piece. If I just tucked it right into that corner, it would have a tendency to want to burn back the edge of that rim because the rim material is thinner than this metal that I'm welding here. So now you can see how this is starting to like trail off. This is where I'm going to have to do a little bit of massaging. From here to here, it looks pretty good. So I think what I'll do is I will do a few more tacks along this so I don't lose what I've got that's already good. We'll put a few more tacks on that, and then we'll take care of this little bit here. Some of you guys that have a combination welder that'll do flux core and will also do solid wire, you guys got to make sure you set your polarity correctly for each of those processes. A lot of people don't realize that, but inside there's either a selector switch. I know with Hobart, one of my Hobarts that I have, I got to switch wires around. So for flux core, you want to have DC electrode negative, meaning that this part of your machine is the negative side, and the work clamp or the ground or whatever you want to call that, the ground lead, that needs to be connected to the positive terminal of your machine. Again, we don't have that option with this one because it's fixed, but you need to make sure if you have a flux core machine that does flux core and solid wire that you're welding on the proper polarity. So a lot of machines have gone on Craigslist because people get frustrated because they just couldn't figure out why it wouldn't weld the way they expected it to. A lot of times it has to do with the polarity you welded on. Just listen how smooth the arc is, guys. This is like $139 or something like that. You know, this is doing everything that a home hobbyist welder would want to do right here. You know, why would you spend more for one of those $3,000 machines? Well, honestly, a lot of it has to do with a lot of the functions, settings, warranty, there's all kinds of other benefits. Yeah, it does weld a little bit better because it has, you know, better electronics, more stable arc, but this, you can do everything with this that a heavy, you know, that a home hobbyist would want to do.
We'd all love to have a top-of-the-line welder, you know, guys, but we always can't afford to have the best stuff. And the reason I like using these types of welders is to show people that are just starting out, especially, that you don't have to go out and spend $3,000 on a welder to get a quality job and get something that you can use and build stuff with and have fun with. And that's where it works great. And as you learn more about this and you get more into it, then you can put some money away and start buying you know, more expensive stuff and better stuff with more features, better warranties, smoother arcs, more processes. It's just, yeah, it's like anything. The more you do it, the more you find that you need. So I'm just probably putting on like some half-inch welds, guys. I'm not going too nuts on this. So now that I got some good tacks, like here, 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 and here, now I can massage this back and make this radius look a little bit better. Again, we're not trying to make it look perfect, guys. We're just trying to make it look a little bit better. It's a fire pit. You know, unfortunately, no matter how good you build these, they're going to rot out, and you're going to have to replace them over time. And that looks pretty good right there. Another thing you want to make sure, guys, when you're welding is that you've got this connected to a good ground. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you grind back a piece of the metal when you put your working clamp or your ground clamp to it. Make sure you grind back a piece of metal so you've got a good connection, because these types of welders are really sensitive if you don't have a good connection. Look at that, guys. That's looking pretty good, huh? I'm happy. I'll do this little bit on the outside. Now with flux core wire, you don't want to be pushing the weld bead. You want to be traveling at a little bit of an angle like this and dragging. So the saying goes, when there's slag you drag, just like stick welding. So if you guys are used to stick welding, there's a lot of similarities between flux core and stick welding. And another thing, guys, don't take your guards off your grinders when you're using them. It's dangerous, it's not safe, there's no reason to do it, and you kind of look like an amateur when you're doing it. So just leave the guards on there, they're there for a reason. And there it is, guys. Now if somebody goes to run, it's probably, yeah, it's still pretty hot. Now if somebody goes to run their finger along that edge, it's not going to cut them. And it just looks a little more finished. And like I said, didn't go all the way around because I don't really need to. It's not necessary. So again, save your consumables. It's achieving the same job that I want to do. But guess what? Now we're going to do an added little piece by putting a little swing out tray so that we can cook on it. And I'm going to make the grates that you cook on the same size as the grates for a gas grill. So when they wear out, you can just buy brand new ones. So for that, I'm going to be using that piece of black iron. I'm going to be using this piece that I showed you earlier, and then we're just going to be using some scrap angle iron that we have. You could even actually use bed frames for it if you wanted to. Now I don't know what these little pieces inside here do, but I'm going to leave them. They're not going to affect anything we're going to do. So, but what the way this next piece is going to work is that I'm going to take this, weld it to the inside of the wheel. Probably won't be that tall, and then this piece here will sit down inside of it, so it will swing out of the way, and then it'll just be a, you know, basically a tray, a square tray of angle iron that hold the grates in, and then when you want to cook over it, you can just swing it out over the fire. When you don't, swing it out of the way. You could make it adjustable in height if you wanted to. I probably would if I planned to use this more than, you know, a few times a year. We'll probably use the fire part a lot, but we probably really won't, in all honesty, use the cooking part of the grate that often. But if I did, like I said, I'd probably make it adjustable with different heights, have little detents, so you could have it, you know, way up or way low, depending on how high your fire was. So that's that. Let's get building this section of it, and I'll probably end up putting it, you know, probably in this area, probably right here or so. That way when it's swung out of the way, you know, all this work that we did here is kind of hidden. So This right here, guys, has been a super handy tool. When I first bought this bandsaw, I used it kind of regularly, but not really. I use this way more now than I ever thought I would. When I built this stand, I never figured I would be getting the use out of this that I get out of it. It's just so handy. It's fast. You can come over here, make a quick cut, move on, be done with it. It's all set up, doesn't take up a lot of space. And with just one little screw clamp underneath, you just unscrew it here. You literally can take the saw right off and take it with you and use it like a portable bandsaw. So check that video out. It's pretty slick. Didn't cost a whole lot to build this either. Probably maybe 20 bucks, I'm guessing, probably in metal. It's all scrap metal. So what I'll do now, guys, is just kind of like mark out the area that I need to clean, just so I know I get a nice good weld. I'll grind all this area back. So now we're going to be welding on that thicker material to a more solid part of the wheel. So let's call that 1/8 inch. So we're going to set the switch to max and set the wire feed speed to 8. So now we'll switch this over to max and wire feed speed of 8. And yeah, like I said, guys, I'm just really impressed with this machine. And this is like a machine, when I started welding at like 14 years old, I started on a machine like this, and I did a ton of stuff. I mean, I built trailers with it, utility trailers. I built tandem axle car trailers as I got a little bit older with stuff like this. Like I said, you can do a lot of this, and there's no shame in it. You know, a lot of you guys on the channel say, you know, I only have a Harbor Freight, you know, Flux Core welder or whatnot. You know, like it's a bad thing. If you're out welding, guys, and you're doing something that you want to do, and this is your hobby, don't have any shame in what you have for equipment, okay? Because nobody knows what you have for equipment when you're doing it. Do you know what I use for a piece of equipment when you looked at a finished piece of product? You don't know. You know, it's more convenience for you to have something, say, like this, that does a lot of the things for you. This machine, as you can see, it's got a 3-year full warranty with it. It's a multi-process machine. This is 3 different processes in one. It's fully synergic, meaning it has onboard programming that it just knows what to set all the other parameters at after you set it for a little bit. And all the consumables on this are replaceable. So, you know, if a part wears out on this, I can buy new. If a part wears out on this, as you can see, this isn't really replaceable. You know, everything is pretty much non-serviceable on this machine. Like, you know, granted, yeah, you can probably get maybe different drive rolls. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but you know, the whip, it's short. It looks like maybe a 6 or an 8 foot whip. This doesn't do gas. This is pretty straightforward. It's pretty bare bones and it's pretty basic, but you know, like I said, the difference between this and that, yeah, that welds a little bit better, but you know, if you have a guy that welds on this every single day for a week, and a guy that's only used that one time just starting out, who do you think is going to be the better welder? The guy with this. Just welding is a lot of practice and getting to know the machine, and every machine welds a little bit different. So yes, it's nice to have those types of machines, but you can get just as much done or pretty close to it with a machine like this, a budget-friendly machine. Might give you a little bit of headaches here and there, but you know, then again, you're talking $140 versus, you know, almost $3,000. So yeah, so don't get discouraged, guys, that's what you have, because that's what I started out with, and that type of machine made me a ton of money. So built a ton of things, sold a ton of stuff, and had a ton of fun doing it. And that's what a lot of this stuff is about, right? Having fun, enjoying yourself. The more I look at this, guys, I think I actually might make this adjustable. So I'm going to make one adjustment setting in it, I guess. So I'm going to make this a little bit shorter and maybe make it so I can adjust it low to high. That's it. It'll just have one other setting. So I'm going to take another probably couple inches off this pipe, and then I'll be able to make it adjustable. And I'm just doing this in my head as we go. So I'll cut this off. We'll make this about 10 inches long. there. And to avoid welding vertical with this, I don't need to. I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to put it in position, put it on its side. Another great thing about having one of these fixture tables, guys, is you can clamp your work down to it, and it just makes it real easy. I'll put a link to this fixture table. I built this. I used a template to do it, so these holes are all perfect, so you can actually use it to make perfect 90-degree corners and everything. Clean that up here in a minute. Yeah, doing pretty good. I'm impressed. We'll flip it the other way and do the other side. That's not too shabby, that's acceptable. You're going to say what every welder says. You got to get good at saying that's not going anywhere. Any good welder will say that. That's not going anywhere. Tell me you guys haven't said that before. That's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. Then I'll make this, say, like an inch taller than this, so 9 inches. That'll pivot in just like that. Then what I'll do is I'll put a hole in it, maybe halfway, so that way you could go up a little bit higher if you needed to. So as I said, the next part we're going to build is the frame to hold the grates. And for the grates, I'm just using standard gas grill grates. I actually pulled this grate out of my gas grill. That way, if this material ever goes bad, I literally, once this gets gross, which this is kind of getting gross now, I can just buy new ones and drop it in place. But I can't just simply weld it up like this, because then we'll have like a little gap here. And I don't really want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cope it out. So what that's going to involve is me just snipping out this piece and that piece and cutting out that. I'll show you how I do that. Then all you do is you'll drop this grate down in it. Like I said, when it gets gross and nasty, you can take it out, replace it, and buy a new one, because these go pretty frequently. Then that way it'll cook nice, and you could do two. I actually have another one right here. I could do another one if I wanted, but I got looking at it, and this, you know, for my wife and I, it's just my wife and I together for the most part. It's just us. So this is perfect for us, and it doesn't cover the entire fire pit when it's cooking. So you can still cook. You know, you can put a few burgers here, put some corn, put some chicken, you know, some hot dogs, whatever. Vegetables, and still we would have plenty of room. But if you needed to make it bigger, you can make it as wide as you need it. But for us, we're just going to do this one. Let me show you how we're going to cope out these corners now. So what I do is this is the piece we're going to cut out. So we're going to cut out basically that flange right there. So we're going to just line it up to the outside here and just put a little mark. So we'll cut it there. And that's going to go all the way back. And just like that. So, right there. So we're going to snip out that corner. We're going to have to do it to that side, and do the same thing for the other piece. So we'll make all our marks right now, then take it to the bandsaw and cut it all out. You don't have to do it that way either, guys. You can just simply measure 1.5 inches. That's what it measures. Make a mark and cut it. Whichever you choose. Another way you can just mark it is just like this. Then I like to just signify my scrap by putting an X on it so I know that's the piece I'm cutting out. Now we're just going to grind all the little areas, guys, where we're going to be welding, and just to get off any of that mill scale or anything like that, just so we have a nice clean surface to weld on. This is where this table comes in super handy, guys. So you can see this is just a shoulder bolt that I bought. It's just a standard 5/8 bolt, and these holes in this table are standard diameter holes to any fabrication table. So just take those, stick them in, bump your workpiece to it, and because I laid this out like I mentioned earlier using a template, this thing makes a perfect 90-degree corner. So there we are, look at that. As long as I bump that into that, and that into that, that's a 90. Now, we take our clamps that we made, and we just clamp it down. I mean, how slick is that, guys? It holds it all in place. Then I can add this piece to it if I want. Then I can add this piece on the back. I can lay this whole thing out and completely weld it up without moving around. And I can go right around and weld this whole thing up. And I haven't even pulled out a square, but I know it's square because when I laid out the table, I made a template, like I said, and made the table square. Because I don't want weld spatter all over my table or my clamps or anything else, guys, you don't need anything special. Just go to the dollar store, get some vegetable oil. It's non-toxic, it won't hurt you, and it works great. Spray your table down, spray down your clamps. That way you're not going to get weld spatter everywhere, and it's not going to be a big mess to clean up. You weld right through it, no problem. Alright, here we go. We're still set on 1/8 inch. I'm keeping my stick out on the gun, guys, or the wire, about 1/2 inch or so. We'll let that cool down, then we'll grind all our welds flush, just so our, that grate fits in there nicely. Look at that, guys, and it's nice and flat, it's not warped, and I know it's nice and square, has to be. And if we did it right, these should drop right in. And they do. Probably don't have to grind the welds, but I think it just kind of makes it look a little more finished, not on the corners, but just on the bottom. And the added bonus is that whenever you're cooking, stuff always falls off the grill. It can't with this. It can't fall off because it's got a little lip. And if you need to replace these, boom, pop it out, buy a new one. I think they sell these right at Home Depot. There, and that's all I needed, just so it set down flush. It didn't rock. There, look at that. tight fit. They don't slide all around. Let's attach it to the fire ring. So what I've done, guys, I just found center line. Now I'm going to clean a nice area up on it and weld that piece onto it. Thought about it, you could even adjust the flame even more or the heat by, let's say you put something right here and you could turn it this way to get it more in the heat and get these out of the heat. That's kind of cool. Or you could raise it up by putting that pin through it like that.
Camping.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get the buns.
Yeah. They'll probably catch fire.
That's right.
She's a rager. I guess it's got a good draft, huh? Probably could have cut some holes in there, but I guess it's not necessary. That wood's really dry though.
Mmm.
Good stuff, huh?
Yummy.
And that's all there is to it, guys. If you're wondering about any of the tools that you see me using, you can check the links down below. But until next Friday, guys, I will see you then. Take care, stay safe, see ya. Please like, comment, subscribe.